started with this SDNA member meetup, and appreciate you all coming on board here for a little bit this busy day, Wednesday afternoon on a busy fall time, to talk a little bit about something that always is sort of top of mind this time of year, and that's covering sports. And so I'm really, really glad and appreciative to have James Cimburek from the Yankton P&D be with us and offer some tips and pointers for us on this. And someone none better, than James. We have lots of good sports pages and sports coverage in South Dakota newspapers. There's no doubt about it. But the work that James and his crew do down in Yankton is right there, and is really, really impressive, particularly when it comes covering local and what they do. They got it covered well. He's been there since P&D since 1992, and editor since 1995. Is that right, James? 95, 96?
96.
96, okay. He's won dozens of awards, numerous awards in both SDNA as well as other state contests, APM&E. He's been the South Dakota Sportswriter of the Year twice in South Dakota, and among many other honors, but just does a really, really good job. And I'm just pleased that he could come on board and offer little few tips and ideas and answer some questions along the way in terms of helping to sort of improve sports reporting, sports coverage, and maybe a little bit of sports photography as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to James here and let you take it from there, if that's all right.
Yeah, as Dave said, I'm James Cimburek. I've been at the Press of Dakotan since '92. Got to work with the great Todd Nielsen here, and continue to work with some amazing people. At 51 years old, I'm still one of the young guys in our newsroom, so I get to learn from some great people every day, and try to instill that in my staff. Our philosophy has always been to focus on local, whether it be football, basketball, cross country, cheer and dance, whatever. And then when we host events, every team that's in town is our home team, and we try and treat it that way. In terms of covering an event, the best way to get started is to plan. Know what your setup's going to be. If you can, talk to your local coach before the game. Let him or her know that you're going to be there. Maybe set up your time to talk to the coach for after the game as well. And then do a little research. Try and find out records. If you can access season stats, do that. Just do some planning so that you kind of know what's going to go on at an event. In terms of on-site coverage, a lot of times I'm also my photographer, so I tend to have my own little system. Usually, what I take notes on, and I have a setup like this. It's a clipboard with a lanyard on it, and instead of trying to stick a notebook in my back pocket, I do that so that my note-taking setup is handy and in front of me, and I don't have to dig and then try and put it back in my pocket as the play is going on. That's kind of actually kind of stole that from Roger Merriam up in Watertown. He's the first one that really that I saw doing that, and since I do a lot of the same things, it worked out pretty well for me. But you have to find a system that works for you in terms of tracking the game and note taking during the game. And as part of that process, if you're also your photographer like I usually am, try and get there early so you can kind of get the camera set up and have those adjustments ready as you go. After the game, if you're filing the story right away, try and catch the coach as close to immediately after the game as possible. Try and catch some kids as well if that's what works for you. I know in terms of weeklies that don't, sometimes you post something right away, sometimes you don't. And with us, even we don't have a paper Sundays or Mondays, but our Saturday games go online right away. So we have that immediate coverage. In terms of the style of writing, we've all seen that basic game, the who, what, when, where, why that we've all grown up with. One of the things we try and do, not with every game, but with some games, is bring more of a feature style to the game. And like last night's soccer match, the lead that my assistant Eric used referenced the 2-hour weather delay that we had in there. And then things like that, where you can find something or someone related to the game that you can play off of, and that style really works. Not just for what we do with dailies on a regular basis, but it works for weeklies as well. Because especially these days where you're covering a Friday game and it goes to print on in Tuesday. A lot of people already know the basics of the game, but you want to bring them a little bit more about the person, about the people, about the team. You want to find a new way of approaching it in order to reach your readers, I guess. And then as you're writing the story, when you've got your quotes, don't just plug them in at the end. Try and work your story around what you have for quotes. That way, it flows a little bit better. And I think more. I've kind of got the basics, but I'd kind of like to hear what you guys do and what you think, and we can kind of help each other.
James, I like the idea of is looking for that different approach to that game story, because I think a lot of times I think what I hear, or what I think the frustration is, particularly when you're sort of a one-person shop at a weekly, whatever, is you sort of get in that rut or the routine of, oh yeah, the game happened, here's the score, here's the quote, here's the sort of the synopsis, and you feel like you're just kind of repeating story after story that's sort of the same format. So the idea of looking for sort of that fresh angle, or that unique thing that could, make it a little bit different from other game stories, I think really makes sense. Are there other things techniques that you've found over the years to make that sort of different approach, or that thing unique, that story?
Well, a lot of it goes back to preparation. If you know the people, sometimes those connections. If you look at like some of the game stories for like a Star Tribune, okay, they have their straight gamer online, but you look at what's in print, and it may talk like the game from yesterday might talk more about the history of that 18 game playoff losing streak than the actual game that broke it. And things like that. That's where the preparation comes in, and sometimes you just don't know. Sometimes the game is what reveals that those possibilities. And I know my first SDNA award came from a game story where I kind of compared the flow of the game to a movie soundtrack, and I'm not entirely sure what inspired that, but it was just something that came to me as I was going through my notes from that game, and it just I just kind of put it together that way.
What about, can you also talk, because I think you guys do a great job, as do others, in terms of sort of profiles, feature profiles of student athletes or participants, as you know, sort of bringing out who they are, and in terms of, you know, the beyond just being on the court or on the field, sort of what they're like off the court and field as well. And can you talk about that a little bit, and how the success you've had with that sort of writing, sports writing?
Yeah, and again, it kind of comes back to knowing the people, knowing a team. Obviously, small town, you're going to know those kids at least in passing. But having opportunities to sit down with them and talk about themselves, talk about their lives. Honestly, that's not something that happens everywhere. It comes with building those relationships with coaches, and once you have those, that opens up more opportunities in terms of being able to connect with athletes and other team personnel.
Other questions, comments, anyone? James, can you talk a little bit about on the photography and the things? What is it that you do that you think that helps make your sports photography work well? What do you strive for there?
Well, a studio photographer would tell you that I'm not a great technical photographer, which I'll admit to. But what I do is basically knowing the sports that I'm shooting. If I'm shooting volleyball, I'm good at reading hitters and having a good idea of where that ball's gonna hit in the back row. When I'm playing football, I'm good at reading the quarterback and knowing where the target is. Basketball is pretty easy because you follow the ball and you know where it's going to go eventually. So it's just a matter of knowing the sport enough to kind of read the play and anticipate a little bit of what action you might see. And honestly, sometimes it's just pure luck. I know the last one of my more recent SDNA photo awards was a kid that lost her shoe in the state track meet, and somehow the shoe popped up in front of her, and I happened to catch that, and that's the photo that I won with.
Wow. Yeah, I think I remember that photo as well. The other thing I think you're really, really good at as well is it's not only with your photography, is not only shooting what's happening on the court or on the field, but also on the sidelines and the stands, the cheerleaders, the band. I mean, I think you do an excellent job of shooting everything sort of around the event as well too, and incorporating that into your coverage.
And well, I mean, it's all part of the game. I mean, part of the spectacle of the event. I wasn't a football player. I was in the band. I ran cross country. So paying attention to the band and some of the stuff on the sidelines is kind of normal for me. But in terms of photos, I've won as many photo awards with reactions and as I have with action. Whether it's an athlete reacting to a play, or the coach, or teammate hugging. I think my last one was Summit League volleyball. And obviously volleyball is a sport where there's a lot of reactions, and so you have plenty of opportunities to get those shots. And yeah, those are shots that I tell as much of the story of the game as the action does.
So perhaps the advice there is don't only don't have to look at exactly what's happening in front of you, but look around you as well too, right, for that shot. See if there's something that catches your attention.
Yes, and don't stop shooting just because the play's over.
Yeah.
Because sometimes those great shots are right or after the play.
A good point. Excellent. Other comments, questions, anyone, or tips or things that maybe someone else has along the way to offer to jump in? Feel free to comment here if you would, or ask questions.
Jim, I have a question for you. What is your opinion as far as facial expressions of your players? Do you get any feedback as far as like, why did you use that picture with my daughter's tongue hanging out when she's doing like going up for a layup? Because that's pretty obvious, you know, but I don't know for sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yes, we get those on occasion. And sometimes I'm like I said, usually it's we've had a couple once or twice where we've been like I'll have 20 photos with a game story and online, and I'll be asked to pull one of them because a player is getting some grief from her teammates about the photo. But usually kids are just happy that you're there and happy that they're in the photos. I've got a fair following on Instagram because we post a lot of game photos on there, and a lot more kids follow me on there than on the site formerly known as Twitter or Threads or whatever. Not sure if I answered your question, but
yeah. I know you were just talking a little while ago about facial expressions kind of tell the story, you know, of the action, you know, so that made me think of, you know, somebody going up for a layup, you know, and their eyes are big and it's like, okay, am I gonna make it, you know, things like that. So I didn't know for sure, you know, you do a lot more of shooting sports, so I didn't know for sure if it was something that people kind of frown on or you get a lot of negative feedback on it or not. But I mean, I think it tells a story, is, you know, in my mind, but just wanted a second opinion.
Yeah, it happens, but there are occasional negative reactions, but it's rare. Most of the time they're just happy they're in there. And I just remember, you talk about a kid having their tongue hanging out when they're going up. We had years ago, we had a local player by the name of Eric Whitty that played at Yankton and then went on and played at Mount Marty. So I had him for 6 or 7 years, and every shot I had of him, his tongue was out, and that, you know, it just came to be expected. And he never complained about having his photo in the paper, so I never really worried about it.
Jim, does the P&D, do you sell reprints of photos? Do you make those available for purchase?
Yes, we do. Like a lot of companies, we use Town News for our website. And Town News does have a setup through there where you can where the photos that are attached to a story can be made available for reprint. And we do also do some in-house, and we do sell digital prints.
Okay. Other questions, comments, anyone?
Curious, what are you selling your prints for?
Boy, that's a good question that I have no idea on. Let me, since I'm doing this on my phone, I can click on my computer and okay. Oh, why is it doing that?
Do you sell, Jill? You sell
Yeah,
prints?
we do. We just sell them by the digital. We'll email you the JPEG. We do $10 plus tax a JPEG, but we also offer a photo package, 7 photos for the price of 10, and that's pretty popular. So,
Hmm.
and they don't have to order them all at once. We keep track on a spreadsheet.
Okay, cool.
I'm just wondering if I'm shortchanging myself or ourselves or not.
Well, our digital prints are 25 plus tax.
25?
25.
Okay.
I don't know why it's not. I'm trying to. Must be something with our website. I was trying to click on a photo to see what the prices were, and it's not letting me. So, I mean, I can track it down and get that to you.
Might be something to consider to raise a little bit then.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time on the sidelines and photoshopping, and so I guess it's worth something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and especially when I like you guys where you're the only game in town, and nobody else is really doing that. So I
Right.
mean, it's I mean, you don't want to overcharge, but at the same time, you want to be able to recoup some of your time and effort into that. So.
Right. Yep.
So here's, I think particularly at weeklies, but I mean, getting newspaper, but a lot of times at weeklies, I think people who cover a lot of sports struggle with this from time to time, and at least we'll run into it, is where you just have a team, the football team or it's the basketball team, they just have a sucky season, right? They're not doing well. They're not winning many games. And it just really, how do you, any advice on how you keep that fresh, keep that reporting, that writing interesting so that without sort of, getting depressed week after week?
I would say a lot of time at the bar, but that wouldn't be constructive. I've had plenty of practice with that in Mount Marty men's basketball before their current run had a string of, I believe, 74 consecutive conference losses. So over the span of 5 years, 4 or 5 years, and volleyball and soccer have all had their stretches like that as well. So I've had a lot of practice at basically you just try and find some positives. Even a bad loss is not a complete and total disaster. You just try and find something or someone to talk about that is a positive and kind of lean into that.
Yeah, I think particularly at the high school level, right? I mean, with younger kids, you're looking to, you don't want to be the negative Nelly every week in the paper, and you have to looking for that positive or the way to kind of keep that that interest and that boost going I think is a good thing. So yeah.
Right, and I've always been of the philosophy, especially with high schools, to not really hammer on kids, because one, they are kids. And two, they're there for an education, not specifically to do sports as a career. So, this is part of the learning process, and you don't win every game, so you got to learn how to deal with all ends of the sport.
Other questions, comments on here along the way?
Hi guys, Marcus here in Mitchell. I meant to interject. We're having all kinds of computer problems, so I'm in here earlier and I had to leave. But I meant to interject on the photo sales. I think I'm kind of in the middle ground here on what we do. We actually have 2 separate rates: one for people that are subscribers and one for people that aren't. So our single photo rate for members is $10 and non-members is $20. and then it's staggered going upward from there. And we offer a discount once you get, especially for subscribers, if you order 20 photos or something like that, we offer a pretty good discount. So that's another way of doing it. That was something we did in the last year or two. And I think to what James said, that money goes into our photo equipment fund, so that when we put that sort of investment into shooting all these photos that you take in a given year, you like to recoup that with photo sales. And so that money helps pay for new equipment. So
That's awesome. That's a great idea. Thank you. So as long as we got Mitchell online here, if I may, just James, jump over to, because you guys, like Yankton, do a great job of your sports coverage as well. Your sports pages are tremendous as well. And you obviously cover a wide area, right, of central South Dakota, lots of counties, lots of schools. How do you guys, but not a lot of staff. So, what's your advice for, if you're a small paper, again, trying to cover multiple schools, what's an efficiency technique that works well for you in terms of getting that all done? Is there anything you can share on that front, Marcus or Blake?
Well, my main thing with that would be, whatever the old saying is about the elephant, you don't have to eat the elephant all at once today. You can eat it over multiple bites over time. If the football season is 8-9 weeks for the regular season, and maybe 12 weeks if you're going all the way to the end of the year, maybe you have those game reports, especially if we're talking like about a weekly, maybe you have those game reports every week or whatever you can handle. And then when you have the moment for the feature, go ahead and strike when that is apparent, and there's a lot of teams in our area that, I had somebody call a few weeks ago and I think they were 4-0, 5-0. I have Landon in here too, so he's kind of laughing, but we had a team that was 4 or 5-0, and they're like, why haven't you written about us? And we're like, because we're going to get to you, basically. It's like what we will get to all the teams that are undefeated here before it's said and done. And we were pretty sure they were going to keep winning, so we weren't as worried about it. But they were asking, well, why haven't you really written about us? And I said, well, we've already been to 2 of your games this year. I always like to point out when we are in these places if people have missed it. But it's one of those things of like, you can't be everywhere all at once, and it's okay to acknowledge that sometimes. And dropping in and acknowledging the successes where you can is just, I think it's a sane way to approach it. And I think readers, if you're dropping in on the different successes that teams are having, readers are seeing that you're paying attention to. So.
And that's kind of sounds like what we try and do as well. And we have the added little challenge of dealing with that river, which sometimes adds 10-15 miles to it. Not really, but in terms of trying to get information. But I'm like, next week the Bucks are on the road, so we're going to try and hit an area game or two as we go, and then plan your features when you can, and hope that and try and plan out to get where as many as you can get to.
Plus, it also helps to make sure you have coaches' email and cell phone numbers and speed dials as well, right? Having good contacts.
Oh yeah, that's key for any time you're covering multiple schools is having that two-way line of communication. And Marcus can attest to that. And the easiest sports to cover are the ones where they're feeding you information. And then sometimes it feels like the sports that most want the attention are the hardest ones to get information from sometimes.
Yeah, I think our toughest sport is cheer and dance, and they're the one that gets the smallest amount of coverage. And it's like, you got to help me. You got to meet me halfway, because we're willing to give the coverage, but I gotta know what's going on. So I would just say, also, I think I can speak for James here, but both of our papers do seasonal previews, fall preview, winter preview, spring preview. And I know James has it, and we have it on our thing. We have the coach's cell phone blank right on there. And that's probably the most valuable thing the coach can fill out for you at the beginning of each year. And I think if you're a weekly or a smaller paper that yeah, maybe you have 2-3 towns to cover. That might be a good thing, is just have the coach fill out a sheet about, I don't know if who does it or not, but have the coach fill out the sheet about, who are the key players to watch for, and have the coach write up a little blurb about what are the storylines we should be watching this year. And then, have that information of, hey, what's the best way for us to reach you when the season's going on, because the cell phone line on there is maybe the most valuable part of that, because we're referencing that for years. There's ones from 10 years ago we still look back to if we're looking for somebody's number. So
Yeah. Anyone else, comments or questions here, or any experiences you want to share or anything?
Well, we also do previews of all of our sports seasons, and it's one of our best sellers amongst our local advertisers. So it's a great way to get some revenue out of this.
It can take some work, but with organization, it's doable, right? I mean, if you plan it, like I said, do the prep ahead of time, and
Yes.
I'm curious, well, I'm thinking of it too, as long kind of we're on the topic of sports here. Particularly, I guess this comes into question with state tournaments and postseason venues. Has anyone had issues or questions related to, I guess, primarily state tournament venues, South Dakota High School Activity Association, in terms of problems or hassles that we should be aware of in terms of talking to the Activity Association about? I mean, I know over time we've had these things come up, but I'm just wondering if there's something out there that maybe we're not aware of right now.
They don't allow the press to use golf carts.
Well, the rule states that they allow TV to use golf carts, but not newspapers. And I've never understood that, because my camera is heavier than most of the TV cameras.
Correct.
I believe I'm still the liaison on the media advisory committee. So by all means, if you or any of your colleagues have thoughts, feel free to let myself, and I'm sure David would pass those. If you tell him, he'll pass those along. The two things that I've had the most issues with over the years, one was last year when state wrestling was in Rapid City. They have the new arena there, and so it was the first time wrestling was there. And of course, probably wrestling and track are the two state events that have the biggest turnout of individual media people there covering. And track it has its own issues, but wrestling, every weekly, every newspaper in the state that's able to be there has somebody there. And sometimes that's your full-time people, sometimes that's a part-time person, sometimes it's a parent taking photos. But the media area was basically on the upper level of the concourse, and it was not a very big space, and we were sharing it with the radio, and there weren't a lot of plugins, and so that was not a great setup. And I know sometimes they've had like a media room where that was down below, away from the arena bowl, that you could work in, and I'd love for that to come back, even though you don't have access to watch necessarily what's going on. It at least gives media a quiet place with power to do your work. So that's on my list to let the SDHSA know that that's preferred. And then the other one is just some of these state tournaments we go to, it says in the media handbook that media outlets are entitled to one program. And sometimes they get stingy about giving you a program, which I know they're trying to make money, but it's part of doing the job. There's a lot of times we go to the state meet and we write about somebody that gets an award for 40 years of coaching, or the Distinguished Service Award. Well, that information's in the program, and all that bio information, all the background is there. And so it's a little frustrating when they run such a tight ship on that. So.
Thank you. Good. Others, any other questions, comments, anyone? Well, James, this has been really, really good. Any sort of last parting shots here before we kind of wrap it up? Anything you want to add, or something we missed, or that you would like to add to the conversation here?
I just want to bring up that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was actually just going to say that James and I kind of formed a friendship of, if Yankton's in my community and he can't be here, I shoot some photos and send them to him, and he does it for me, vice versa. And it's helpful for being a small staff. So I hope there's other papers out there that work that way too, I guess.
That's a really good point. I know there are others, and I'm glad you brought that up, Jill, because I mean, I think that's indicative of sort of our community of journalists and newspaper reporters and editors in South Dakota, that willingness to help out with shooting events that you can't get to, whether it's cross country or golf, football, those kinds of things. So yeah, that's all good. We appreciate that.
Yeah, that's something we do a lot more with the dailies. I just sent some photos to Marcus earlier this week from both the Mount Marty Dakota Wesleyan football game, and their cross country team was here on Monday. But it's something we do a lot with the other bigger papers, and I do it with other papers that have communicated to me that they need something. Jeremy Walton or Freeman and I have a pretty good relationship with things. Jill and I and Brandon, of course, and a couple others as well.
Yeah, I think it'd be hard pressed to find a fellow editor reporter that's not willing to help out or share if they're able to in South Dakota. So I think that's really, really good. So
I'll just put my hand up that, yeah, if anybody needs anything in Mitchell, feel free to ask. I can't make any guarantees that it's always going to happen, but I'll do what I can. And, I think I've been doing this long enough to know that maybe we were more competitive at one point, but we're all in the same boat at this point. So anything I can do to help make somebody else's boat float a little bit, I'll be willing to help. So
thank you. James, anything else?
I'm just gonna reiterate in terms of game stories, plan ahead and try and find new ways of looking at things. Those are the two big things that I wanted to get across today.
Excellent, and really, really good tips. I think that those two things can go a long ways in terms of kind of beefing up and improving, giving a fresh look to your reporting and writing on the sports pages and news stories as well. But planning and prep is I think so key to making those things better. So listen, we're coming up on 45 minutes here, and with that, I think we're going to cut it off. But I want to just reiterate, this has been recorded, so we'll make the recording available as well. And appreciate everyone spending a few minutes with us. Our next one later this month, at the end of the month, is going to be focused on recovering and writing about local board meetings, city council, school board meetings, and how to improve that type of coverage as well. So another meat and potatoes type topic for community newspapers. So with that, thank you everyone, and good luck covering the game this week. So good luck. See you. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.